This episode is brought to you by Indie Film Hustle Academy, where filmmakers and screenwriters go to learn from top Hollywood industry professionals. Learn more at ifhacademy.com. I'd like to welcome to the show Edson Oda. How you doing, Edson?
Good, man. How's it going?
Thank you. Doing well, man. I'm so happy to have you on the show, man. Like I was telling you before we got on, I had the pleasure of watching 9 Days, and I absolutely loved it. I think it's a film that we need in this world now. Just kind of starts that conversation about deeper conversation about what we're doing, and I think the pandemic has really made us think about our lives in general. But before we go down the rabbit hole on your film, how did you get into business?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Brazil, and then I started working in advertising like straight out of college, and then I worked in advertising for like 10 years as a copywriter. And then after that, I moved here to the US. I went to film school, grad film school. And then I just started writing stuff. And at some point, I just wrote 9 Days and got to the Sundance Labs. And then from Sundance Labs, I introduced some producers. And then from then on, it just like started sending out until like we got finance and everything. So
that's pretty. That's awesome. So when you were in Brazil, you were working in the commercial world.
I used to work in an advertising agency.
Oh,
You're familiar with it?
Oh, very much so. I've been a commercial director for 20 years. So I've been a commercial director for over 25 years between music videos and commercials and stuff. And before that, I was editing commercials as well, so I'm very well aware of the agency side of side of the business. Now, coming from a commercial background and a music video background, how did that prepare you to jump into your first feature?
It prepared a lot, actually. It was interesting because when I migrate, I said like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna start from beginning, but then I think as it was just when it was doing prep and it was filming, I saw that it prepared quite a bit, actually, like especially writing, because it was a copywriter. And it was interesting because in terms of I think commercials are a very high concept, and you always try to grab people's attention in like a short span of time. Mm-hmm. And there's something that even like 9 days, if you pitch someone, there's a kind of element like, oh, this is weird, this is different. And I think even when it was coming up with the concept, it was trying to go with something that felt kind of unique somehow. And it felt, and at the same time, when you in advertising, you're pushed to just like have the best execution to one single scene that's usually like 30 seconds. So I think every single scene somehow I saw more or less like a commercial in a way that I need tons of execution to just find the one that I feel like, oh, this fits well to the story and what I want to achieve. So it was very helpful, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, when you're writing, ideally you're supposed to have a beginning, a middle, and end in every scene. And with a commercial, you are trained to do that every 30 seconds. Yeah. So it helps you with your writing a lot, I'm sure. Now, how did 9 Days come to life? No pun intended.
It's been it was in a purgatory, and then someone's like, it was such a I started writing it. It was like 2015, I think. I guess it was pretty quick, actually. And then I wrote like this first draft. And I wanted to write this kind of micro budget movie, because I felt like even if people don't invest money in it, worst case scenario, just like I do a Kickstarter or something, and I just make it myself. So I felt like, I'm gonna write something that I can produce with like interact with like 100K or something like that. Sure. Right. And they wrote, it took me like, I think 1 month or something after I figure out what I want to write about, like 1 month to just structure all the thoughts in my head. And then after that, it took me like 3-4 months just to, write the pages. And so it was more like 4 months until I had like a rough first draft. And then I got to the Sundance Labs, and after the labs, I just started working on that script for like year and a half, 2 years or something like that. And then from then I just like start just like meeting producers and from that on it was like it was something that wasn't just me, but it was like other people also.
Something took over the project at that point.
Yeah. Mostly it was me because I would be the person just doing like most of the, trying to sell and trying to convince people, yeah, give me money or stuff like that. But it wasn't, and then people were just like be on my side, just give money to him or something.
Yeah, he's a good fella. It's okay. Give him some money. Give him some money. He's not gonna lose it all. It'll be fine. It's always I love talking to filmmakers about getting the money for their projects, because I don't care who you are. Everyone's got to hustle. Everyone's got to hustle to get their financing. Yeah. There's very few directors who don't hustle to get their finance, especially for your first film. But when watching watching the movie, I can see that it could have easily been done for $100,000. It was, control locations. I mean, obviously not as grand of scale, but you could have, push come to shove, made an independent version of that without question. Yeah. And we're talking so much about the film. Can you tell this to the audience what this film's about?
Yeah, this is such a weird movie to pitch, but I practice a lot. So this movie is about this interviewer. It happens in this distant reality. I would call it's a lo-fi, in the same vein of movies like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind or Her, and then there's this like a reality which is kind of a pre-life reality, as I call it. It's a before-life reality, and there's like this interviewer whose name is Will, and he interviews souls to choose one soul for the privilege of being born. And the process, takes like 9 days to be concluded. And during these 9 days, he's just gonna, talk to the souls, know them better. And then by the end of the process, you just pick one to be born, to be where we all at now.
So what is your definition of a soul?
That's an interesting question. I think it's everything that's not created through the environment. I think it's things that are innately they're part of us before we interact with one another, but somehow they tell how the interactions or how the environment will shape us. But it's kind of I think scientifically it would be our DNA. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting, but it's not the DNA because, as you can see, there's so many things.
Variables. There's variables.
Yeah.
But on a spiritual level, what do you think your definition of a soul is, if I may ask?
I think it would be more like the DNA of your personality. I think it would be the DNA of you as nothing related to your body, but
as a being. Because I love first of all, I love the casting, and I loved the variety of ages, the ages, the colors. It was like a rainbow. It was fantastic to watch. But I love that some of the souls that came in for the interviews were older, some were younger, and they were all different personalities. And I found it so interesting that the concept that, arguably a freshly born soul, which is what I took from the film, that it's a freshly born soul comes in and goes, okay, I'm here. I'm going to interview, but if I don't make it, I just go back into the mix, and then hopefully I'll get born again some other time and maybe get another opportunity. But I just love that they all came in with some with attitude. Some were very pleasing. Some wanted to please. Others were very standoffish. It was a really interesting character study. I think it was almost a sociology experiment. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. It was interesting before I chose to become like advertiser. It was like in between like psychology and sociology actually, and then I felt like I always want to somehow understand society, or even give something back to society or do something for them. But at the same time, I felt like I had this kind of selfish desire of creating things, and just like have the fun of creating. Then at the time, it was just, went with advertising, and then I think later in my life, it just felt like, it was so interesting to do something that was more like connected to more people, and how I feel about the environment around us. And it's almost like sociological study, and I think like 9 days is more or less like that. It's like what happens if or something, and why we are the way we are. It's not about like I feel trying to just answer anything, but it's more about like just raising the questions and like start discussions, which for me it was just very, very interesting.
Yeah, no, the film definitely starts questions, and it asks questions, and definitely will start discussions. I have to ask you, how was it to workshop this at the Sundance Writers Lab?
Yeah, it was just amazing. It was just I think since when I got here in the US, I think I didn't know so much about the Sundance Labs, but then when I got to know, I just felt like this is kind of my dream. I wanted to be selected to just workshop the script with like the amazing mentors, and they give you feedback. And something interesting is not just about the feedback and how you meet them and they give you like notes, but it's more about the environment. It's more about it's interesting because like my movie, the whole process is very almost like spiritual. It's like a bunch of people who are there, isolated. And the rule number one is just like, let's not listen to the industry. We're here. We want to do something that's human, that, something that makes a difference, something that, it's you or you. And let's just forget what other people, are saying. Just find the reason for why you're telling your stories and why it's important. And then after we finish this, we just go and start just like, pitching it. So it was interesting because the whole place, the whole environment, the process is so much about learning how to be vulnerable, learning how to be personal, learning how to, tell your own stories, but not just by, telling stories for the sake of telling stories, because it has also to do with the how can we help you with the craft in order to tell the story. So it was just like a perfect environment for me, like personal, but also very technical too.
It's like going to Tibet with a monk. It sounds like it's you're completely walled off from the rest of the world. It's a whole bunch of other monks there teaching you how to meditate in the craft of storytelling.
It seems like I don't know if you watch like Cobra Kai or something.
Of course, of course. Yeah. I mean, of course, I watch Cobra.
That's more like the Miyagi-Do,
Yeah.
Just wanna and Hollywood is more like the Cobra Kai.
Yes.
And then later you can just, after you go to Miyagi-Do, you can go to, Cobra Kai and see like, oh, this is the script that I brought from Miyagi-Do.
Yes. That's such an amazing analogy of Miyagi-Do versus Cobra Kai.
And I think like now I'm doing advertising for the Cobra Kai, but sure. I think now the new season, we're going to learn that both of them need each other.
Which at the end of the day is true. Because Hollywood does need the independent story, and the independent story needs the infrastructure of Hollywood. Because all of our great directors and writers, they all start somewhere. They all start with their independent films, generally speaking. Before they don't just generally come out the gate with $100 million.
striking first, striking hard. Right?
Yeah, strike first, strike hard. Wow, we're going deep down the Cobra Kai.
Let's go back to 9 days.
That's so funny. All right, so can you explain, if you can tell us, kind of take a step by step. So you're done at the Sundance Lab. You finish the script. You meet a few producers, and then you basically just go out into the world and just start looking for financing and money to try to put this project together. How long did what was that project like? What was that process like, and how long did it take you to do?
Oh yeah, it was interesting. Right after the Sundance Labs, I just went back to my desk and I just started writing. So yeah, okay, now we're ready to just go out. So my managers, my team just like started sending out to producers and Sundance as well. It's interesting because I was done at Sundance, but Sundance never, done with you. They're always supporting you. So, and then like for the next like months, we just started sending scripts and just start carrying like producers. So I think during the 1 year, I started just like working with producers for 1 year, but it's more trying to, find investors and people who would be interested. At the same time, it's just hard for you as a first-time director to get like money because the way they want to do it, they want to do like more of with more resources. And when I wanted to do, when I wrote, okay, I would do like 100K, but they wanted to do with more than 100K. So when you start like asking investors, they were very interested, but as well, but they were also like, yeah, we like his vision, all this stuff, but who would play, this character or that
Always
character?
that. Always that.
Yeah. So that was a time when we just started going, introducing the script to actors and having meetings. And, from, I think that was like during 1 year, and then a couple of months later, just having conversations with the cast when we have like amazing casting directors.
Gotcha.
And we just like, we just started just sending out the script to everyone. And then the actors were so, receptive to the script. And from that, we just, when people said, like, yeah, I want to, play this role and everything, we just like went back to the investors and they said, like, yeah, we just gonna, invest.
Yeah, I mean, after that cast, I would invest too. I mean, it was a heck of a cast that you got put together there. I mean, it's an actor's dream. This script is an actor's dream. All the parts, even the small parts, have so much meat in them that most actors would love to play that part. And I forgot his name, but the Will who plays the lead.
Winston Duke.
Yes, he better get a nomination for Best Actor. I mean, he was a tour de force performance. I was enchanted, enthralled with him. He has such a presence. Generally, he's a very large man.
Yeah.
From Black Panther and from Us, he's a very large man. But his presence, because he was a little bit. There was moments where he showed his physicality in the movie, but he was normally just very quiet, very gentle, and he still just had such presence. And when you start mixing in all these other actors, I mean, what was it like for you as a first-time filmmaker, not first-time filmmaker, but first-time feature filmmaker, to have a cast like this? What did you feel like going on the set for the first day or the table read the first day? Like, what are the nerves? How did you approach this process?
Yeah, no, it was amazing. Just now I remember the name. Jessica, yeah, both cast directors, Jessica Kelly and Kit Keller. So
got it. They did an amazing job. They did an amazing job.
And everything. Yeah, they did an amazing job. So it was an amazing process. Just like, since day one, we're just talking to. It was very surreal because it was my first feature, just having this, A-list actors with you. And I remember like having all those, actors in the table read, and they just reading your lines and adding like so much, to the work that I put on the page. And it was interesting because I think in the beginning, because it was so much like a collaborative process. And for me, it was like, okay, I wrote those lines and those pages, but it was interesting that every, person in the team, they just like brought like different, interpretations for who the characters were, and even, for example, Winston, he didn't want to play the character who was the depressive guy, like who is always like one same note. And so he was always trying to find, what's the happiness behind Will? What's going on in him? Not in a way that he's just like this one note person, but just try and find more of his humanity. And like some other characters, like the souls, we had like deep discussions in a way, like how they're gonna, interact with one another, how they're gonna like interact with the world surrounding them. And because since they're all souls, one couldn't just like, look at water and say like, oh my God, this is water. This I never tasted before. And the other one just be like blasé about water. It's like, oh, cool, water. But they would need to do some kind of, same kind of energy towards things around them. So we have like deep discussions about how would they, act. And everyone had like really great ideas in a way, because it was pretty much like experimental work, if you think of it. People who don't have any even backgrounds or past, and then you have just find what, how they would react to the world outside.
What was the hardest day on set for you, where you were just like, oh my, because we all have it. Like when we're on set, there's that day, there's that something that happens. We're just like, how are we going to make it through this? There's always something. So what was that hard day for you?
I think we didn't have a lot of days to shoot. Mm-hmm. So it was like, we had 23 days to shoot everything, like the Prince photography.
Yeah.
And I remember, and especially like the last wishes, the bicycle and all the stuff.
So beautiful.
Because it's just one page on the script or half a page, but it's kind of they take like a day. You know? But we didn't have a lot of days, so I remember we just shot like the bicycle, the beach scene, and everyone said, "Yeah, this is great, this is amazing." The bicycle as well, but and then I had this conversation with the producers, exec producers, and who was doing all the scheduling, and say we're not gonna finish this movie, And
you're behind. We're behind. We can't make it happen.
And it was interesting because we wouldn't, because later we got some more days, but it was kind of tough to just like we're filming something that really felt really special, but we kind of, oh my God, we can't make it, And it was a day that everything kind of went really didn't go right, and the projections and all that stuff. It was just like a very difficult, thing to handle. So it was kind of I always had this feeling like, oh, we're doing something special here, but I'm not going to be able to finish. So, and that day was the representation of that fear.
Listen, I mean, I'm sure Francis Ford Coppola felt the same way through Apocalypse Now.
Thanks for comparing me to.
I mean, that's. Look, 2.5 years in the jungle. But we have
20 days. Yeah.
I think it doesn't matter what level you are as a filmmaker. There are those days that you want to have your vision put up there, but the realities of filmmaking, it's not easy.
No.
And when I saw those scenes, the second you said, well, the scenes with the wishes, I was like, oh yeah. I looked at those scenes. I'm like, those don't look easy to shoot. There's a lot of stuff going on. The projection, the light, the water. It didn't seem easy, but yeah, that was those are so beautifully shot too. Oh, and the music, the music was wonderful. How did you find the sound for this film?
Yeah, well, I've always been like a huge fan of Antonio Pinto. I don't know if you're familiar with his work, but he worked on Central Station, City of God. He worked in all those amazing Brazilian movies, and I remember his friend of he was working with a friend of mine, and then I got introduced to him, and it was amazing. Antonio is pretty much like the representation of a genius. He's this very cool guy who just feels like he's just like not concerned about things or here, and then just all of a sudden he just comes with something that it's amazing. It was working with him during pre-production, and most of the songs he composed before we started pre-photography, because he knew the songs before we're shooting the girl playing the violin,
right?
Which shot like before I started pre-photography, and it was. And first was just like, let's just have something like stamp, you compose, and then later we just compose something more elaborate for the rest of the movie. But the songs were so good that we just kept those songs and started just composing, songs based on that main song. And it was just like, having Skype meetings with him, like the same way we're having now. And it was just like, let me play something to you, And it was just like, his instrument or something, and just like, And then if you say, I don't know about that, and it was just like play something else, and it was just like, oh yeah, that's exactly that. So it was just like amazing working with him. Very surreal how
now I love the aesthetic of what you did with the film, the production design with the vintage, everything being vintage, which was such a lovely touch. It wasn't super sci-fi or anything like that. It was all vintage, and all those vintage TVs representing souls' lives. But I have to ask you, how the hell did you shoot all that footage for all the souls that are constantly running? Like, when did you shoot? Was that during production or was that after production?
Pre-production. Okay. Almost everything in pre-production. It was kind of nightmare because it was planning, the shoot and all this stuff and doing everything prep. And then later the day it would just like be picture locking, the stuff. And we would shoot like, during 9 days, like the main thing that would go into TVs. And then after that, we would just like start like the heavy pre-production for Prince photography, but it would still be editing, picture locking the stuff that would go on the TVs during like Prince photography. So it was crazy. And we shot in Utah, most of the stuff, but also we just farm out like with like a shot in Brazil, in LA. So most of the stuff that you saw, they're all priorly shot.
Yeah, and it was all practical on set too.
Most of them were practical on set. But then there's some, fillers, some TVs were not like the hero TVs as it's called. That they were like
Comped.
We create comp. Yeah, comped.
They were comped in afterwards. No, it was beautiful. I just loved the analog aspect of everything that Will was writing constantly in the filing cabinet and all that stuff. It was what made you come up with that idea of vintage as opposed to because something like this you could easily have gone sci-fi, much more sci-fi-esque.
Yeah.
So what made you do the whole vintage vibe?
I think that there is so much about the war and the feeling that I want people to have. It was more so much connected to the nostalgic feeling past, and it's hard for me, like what represents my past and what represents like my years ago would be like the 80s. That was when my childhood happened. So I knew that I would need something like that, and I knew it wouldn't have to be like technological, like Ex Machina or 2001, but it would be nice to have like this kind of very this texture of like wood, this texture of like glass, and not like iPads or iPods or anything like that. And then it created this kind of concept that I imagined that Will got in prison during the time period when he died. So like he wouldn't see anything in his house. That's kind of a goal that comes after. So he would be living this 80s, time period for the rest of his existence. He's like stuck into it.
Will Will ever become alive again?
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah. I wish.
That's the sequel. That'll be 10 days.
Yeah.
Now, so you've made this beautiful film. You put it all together, have great cast, great script, and then you send it out to the festivals, and you get the phone call that every filmmaker, independent filmmaker, wants to get, which is the call from Sundance. What was that phone call like for you?
It was amazing, and it was such a we're so working such a time, like very short amount of time for schedule, because we shot in September, we finished shooting in September, and we just had to edit and finish everything like a cut to Sundance to get into the to screen in the festival like January. So it was like very, very rushed. And I remember there's so much in terms of pressure, in the sense of, it comes from the labs, but it's not, some films, from the labs, they screen Sundance Festival. Mm-hmm. And I remember it was just so stressed, like, how am I going to make it or not? And it was just at the gym. And, someone who actually was someone who went to USC with me, who called me to give me the good news. And,
oh, really?
She started working at Sundance and stuff. And it was even joke when she started working at Sundance. I said, like, maybe one day you're just gonna give me a call, or that my film was accepted, or do the Q&A and everything. And she just let me know and give me the call, and just like start yelling and screaming and say, oh my God, I don't believe it. And it's interesting because during the festival, she was one of the organizer who did my Q&A, which was very cool. So it was kind of almost like a full circle. Yeah, so it was very cool, very, very, very special, man. It was just like my connection with Sundance. It was my dream, becoming alumni, and then a dream going to the festival, and now they're always so supportive. They love the movie, and. I really feel like they're kind of my family. So it was great just to share like in this very safe space, and just being screening with other people. So very, very special.
Where did you screen at the Eccles?
I screened at the Eccles. Yeah, it was unbelievable.
What was that?
It was nerve-wracking. It was terrible. Like I just couldn't. My stomach was just not doing well, and it was none of my actors watched the movie before the screen. So and everyone is so pumped. There's so much hype, and people, this is gonna be great. This is gonna be I don't know. It's just and no one watched it, so we didn't know what would be the reaction. It's such a different movie, right? So we don't know. And it was interesting. I even remember going to the bathroom and super nervous, and then I met Tony Hale there, and he was just like, "Yeah, it's, don't let what happens, out there define who you are, And that was very nice, That was something that I think I'm gonna carry for the rest of my career, in a sense. Like, and he was, yeah, because for him, like, we did something special. We did something that, and what they say is just like, can control whatever, and just go there, but luckily, people, we had like an standing ovation for like, I don't know how many minutes. People were just crying. People just came to talk to us, and it was very special.
Oh, I'm not going to give the ending away, but I teared up. I teared up when I watched it. I was just like, because I didn't see it coming. I didn't see it coming until probably about 4 or 5 minutes before it happened. I was like, wait a minute, could that? I'm like, oh my God, that's the thing. So I didn't catch it right away. So that's always something fun, because I've seen so many movies in my life. It's hard to get one past the goalie in many ways with plots, and that was a really nice touch. But I definitely teared up after I watched it. It was great. The one thing I love about the whole story and the concept is that we as human beings are always defining our happiness by the goals that we set. Like, we're going to get married. I'll be happy when I'm married. I'll be happy when I get that job. I'll be happy when I get to Sundance. I'll be happy and your story is like, well, the goal is just to get here, which is an interesting way of looking at it, because so many of us are born into this world, and we think that in many ways your film says you won, you're here. Yeah. Now, what are you going to do with it is the question.
Yeah. No, 100%. It's interesting because it comes from the genesis of this word, more or less coming from like going through like some hard times and feeling like, this I'm kind of hating what I'm going through. But what if this is something, just by being here, is something that's a privilege, And then it's so much about like the trying to aim at some goals and say like, yeah, when this happens, I will, And for me, it was the same, because I remember being in advertising and working in advertising. It was just like when I win the gold lion, in Cannes, I will, And I remember like exactly the feeling of winning it. And I remember like being on the stage and saying, "Hey, great!" And people like, "Oh, congratulations!" And when I stepped down, and just when I went back home, I just felt like, what does it mean? Does it mean anything or something? And it wasn't. And I think it was one of the moments that I felt like, maybe I should do something else, which was interesting.
Yeah, there's so many times that we put so much emphasis on a goal, and when you get that goal, there's depression afterwards, because you've worked all your life. So people are like, I want the Oscar. And I've spoken to people who've won the Oscar who's just like, after the Oscar, I'm like, I was depressed. Like, where do you when you get to the top of the mountain, where do you go? Because if your goal of life is to get to the top of the mountain, but the goal of life should be enjoying the ride up to the top of the mountain, and also walking back down and going back up to another mountain and all that kind of stuff. So that's a really, and I'm glad that you had that experience, because if I just had the golden lion, look, I got it. Hell, what do I do? What do I do now? I'm not 85, so my life is not over yet. What do I do now?
And it's crazy. Even after Sundance, I went back to Brazil, and it felt like, what do I do now? Because it was pretty much like, this is I want to make my first feature. And then I made my first feature, and now then it would go to theaters and all this stuff. And then I said, and what's the point now? What's the purpose? So it's kind of next? Like, it's next? Weird when you put all the energy in like goals, because then if they happen or don't happen, it's just like so much about it. And I think it's very interesting you brought up about maybe we already achieved the goal, but you can't see it. So
right, exactly. We're just so caught up in this physical reality that we don't understand that we're like, it's a pleasure, it's an honor just to be here. It's kind of like I'm honored just to be nominated.
I'm honored
it's nice to win, but I'm honored just to be nominated. So
No one says that. Like, I'm honored to be alive.
Yeah, no, exactly. But most people. But the thing is that right now, as we're speaking, there's people right now as we're speaking leaving this earth.
Yeah.
And as we're speaking, new souls are coming in. So I promise you, the people who are leaving, many wish that they continue to have the honor of living.
Yeah.
So it should be something that people, hopefully take away from this film. That this is it really is an honor just to be nominated.
To live. Yeah.
Until it's time, until security escorts you out. Now, you've written this amazing movie about the soul's journey. Why do you think we are here? Why do you? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, because after this movie, I would love to hear what you think.
I have no idea. It's just. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes I know. I'm pretty sure.
Right.
That has a meaning. Because I'm pretty much like a half of Will and Emma. Mm-hmm. At some moments I feel like some moments I just feel like, man, this doesn't make any sense. and I think it's just for me it's just like this, and I think it's gonna be for the rest of my life. Like there's meaning or not meaning. There's meaning or not meaning. There's some purpose or not purpose. So it's hard for me to just. It's interesting because people come to me and say like, oh, you wrote a movie about enjoying the world and stuff, and then there's this day it was just someone was telling me like, oh, how the sunset is amazing. I said, that's not right. It's okay, right?
It's not the Avengers.
But he wrote a movie about it.
I'm joking.
Yeah, but it's interesting because there are some moments I feel like there is for sure this kind of a energy, and there's like meaning, and there's some moments that just feel very cynical, about things, what things that happen. So,
but that's the upside down. That's the up and down. But isn't that the up and down of life, though? Yeah. I mean, there's days that you're on top of the world, and other days you're just like, oh God, I forgot to pay that bill. Now my car got repossessed or something, and you're just like, oh my.
And paying the bill is you're being very optimistic, because usually. Really worse than that. Right?
I'm being very kind. Yeah, it could be like a million different things that could happen. It is, but that is this crazy thing that we call life. Now, I'd love to ask this one question of you. Mm-hmm. What do you think your soul's purpose is on this journey? What you think you're here to do for not only for yourself but for other people? Because this film is for other people, no question about it. Yeah. Not only just for yourself.
I think I remember there's a moment in my life I felt like very, lonely in a way that I was like, I think there's no isolated in a way that I felt like I was all by myself. There's no one would, and it felt terrible. It was in a way that I felt like it's so disconnected from everyone and everything, And I remember. I came up with this, and then I started writing. I started things, and it was interesting because, especially after writing 9 days, I put a lot of those feelings on the page, and how isolated I felt, how desperate I felt, how out of hope I felt, and then now people who felt the same are coming to me and telling like, oh, I felt the same way, oh, this is something that I also went through, and somehow I feel like so powerful. Like I by showing that I felt that way, I can make people not feel alone, because we kind of share the same feeling. Like so, it was interesting that I think if I can do anything, the value here is so much about putting it out and letting people like me know that they're not alone, and that way I'm also gonna figure out that I'm not alone too. So I think that's something that I want to keep doing for sure.
That's a great answer, because there's so many souls or people in this world that feel alone, whether it be in their professional lives and their personal lives, and I think that's the magic of movies, when you watch a character going through something and you go, oh, I'm not alone. And that's the brilliance of what we do as filmmakers. And I think you definitely nailed it with 9 days, my friend. Now I'm going to ask
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
And I'm going to ask you a few questions I ask all my guests. What advice would you give a filmmaker trying to break into the business today?
Don't try to break into business. I think just don't think of I think the same thing that we're discussing here about the goal and trying. I think I would just tell a story you want to tell and something that's not there you want to see, and then things will happen as a consequence, and just keep doing your stuff, and also don't put your hopes in other people. So maybe if you write something that's very personal, just write in a way that you can do yourself. So you don't let your dreams in the hands of other people. You just, so if no one does it, just do my things and
right.
And
so writing a script that could be done for $100,000 or could be done for 10 million.
Yeah.
That's the idea, because if not, you'll be waiting for 10 years for that 10 million if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, and just name dropping. There actually was an advice that Quentin Tarantino gave to me. I met him because I won a competition like a while ago. It was before coming to US, 2012. I did like a short, and then I had a chance to sit with him for like 30 minutes.
Oh, that's amazing.
And then it was amazing. And then I asked him for advice, and he said it's pretty much like he was telling me to do the same that he did with Reservoir Dogs, because he would make Reservoir Dogs with like, I think $40,000 at the time. And
you could have.
You could have, yeah. So the same way I wrote 9 days, I couldn't make 9 days with like 100K or something, And I think 100K now is the new version of $40,000. But right, with all this inflation and stuff. But then I was lucky, like him, to find people to invest. But even if I didn't find people to invest in my dream, I would say, okay, screw it up. I just gonna make the movie anyway. So I think that was a great advice. They're just passing forward. I'm trying to look cool, but I have to admit it's not bad advice.
It's not bad advice to pass forward from a little known director like Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
Now, what is the lesson that took you the longest to learn, whether in the film industry or in life?
It's still a lesson I haven't learned yet. I think it's to live more in the moment, in the same way that Emma lives in the moment, and just enjoy the ride in a way that, I think 9 Days is a movie to remind me of that as well. Because there's a part of me that, yes, can enjoy the moment, but there's so many, moments that's hard to, put that into practice. And I feel like that's happiness is pretty much that, I think that for me, it's just being able to just accept things as they come and be, good with what's life's giving you. And not always I can do that. I think I'm getting better. But that's something that I'm still learning. I've learned some.
What you're talking about is almost becoming a spiritual master, because that's what like yogis do that. Like whatever comes to them, they just kind of like, life is good. And that's what we all try to get to.
Yeah, not even life is good, but they just accept it. I think, right?
There's an acceptance.
Life sucks sometimes, but it's just like they accept it. Yeah, a lot of times.
A lot of times life sucks. I think that's...
a lot of times,
so don't use that as your marketing for the film. Sometimes life just sucks.
But sometimes it's just amazing. And I think the combination is...
Right.
And and it wouldn't be amazing if it didn't suck before. So it's almost like, so it needs to suck.
I mean, if you just kept hitting home runs all the time, it would be boring.
And all the movies are like that, someone is like struggling and stuff, and then they succeed, and cool, it's great.
But you need the struggle. You need the struggle. You need the struggle, or else it's a horrible story. If Luke knew the Force at the beginning, what's the point?
Luke, was badass and stuff. Yeah, couldn't look.
And what are 3 of your favorite films of all time?
Oh my god, I was writing a list right now, so I have to put The Matrix
on my top 3 as well, sir.
Yeah,
I love The Matrix.
I love this movie. I love City Lights. Charlie Chaplin movie.
Oh, I love that movie too. He's so great.
Oh man, the other one. I want to put like I have Seven Seal, and I have could put Wings of Desire. But yeah, I'm so American, man. I'm putting all this. I have to put Back to the Future. You know,
There's nothing wrong with that.
We're not talking about movies that influenced me as a director, but more as movies that reflect my childhood. I think those movies are movies that I have to go back to.
Back to the Future is one of the most perfect films of all time.
I know. I just wanted to, sound a little more artsy,
No, don't. I know. Like people were like, I don't know, Citizen Kane and Seven Samurai. Really?
See, like I had a friend who every time I would tell my movies, Back to the Future stuff, he would just kind of, be a little more like
snobby. He would be snobby.
Snobby, yeah. and then of course I love I love The Seventh Seal. I love
No, I mean look, I love Seven Samurai. I love High Low. I love a lot of Kubrick's films. But if Back to the Future's on, I'm watching it. If The Matrix on, I'm watching. I watched
Back to the Future I think more than 20 times. I think.
You like the second one the best?
When I was a kid, I loved the visual effects.
Oh my god, the future, oh god, yeah. We can geek out. We can geek out about that. And when is the movie coming out, and where can people see it?
It's out. Yeah, it's out.
It's out already?
Out in LA. No, actually, it's out in LA, in New York, but now it's coming out to nationwide this Friday.
This Friday.
So, this Friday. Yeah, so go watch it.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Listen, man, congratulations on the film, and I wish you nothing but continued success on your journey, my friend. You're doing good work here, and I hope,
thanks, man. Appreciate it.
And I really do hope it not only entertains people but makes people think a little bit about being just honored to be nominated.
Yeah, what if you're not even nominated?
Well, if you're not ever nominated, then you go out and what happens to the souls happens to the souls. I'm not going to ruin it, but that's what happens when you're not nominated.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
My friend, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much, man. Appreciate it. Okay.